Hi, Al. I decided to explore the presence of female bisexuality in American cinema as the focus of my final paper and presentation. Though not much research exists on this topic, the obtainable literature speaks volumes. Prevalent in most films featuring female bisexual leads are the notions that they are duplicitous and not to be trusted. However, there are inadequacies that occur. It is also important to note for whom these characters are intended. It can be argued that oftentimes in Hollywood, bisexual female characters are introduced to appeal to the heterosexual male audience and queer female spectators. Additionally, a look at the monosexist dichotomy between gay and straight identities will be explored, and how bisexuality fits into the equation. For this project, I selected three films in particular: Bound, which introduces viewers to the infamous femme fatale character, notoriously known for being opportunistic and allowing her sexual preference to follow suit; Chasing Amy, which cleverly explores sexual fluidity and also happens to be one of my all time favorite movies; and lastly, The Kids Are All Right, a recent movie which depicts two women at the head of a neo traditional nuclear family and their turbulent marriage after one of them has an affair. I'd like to take a moment to discuss some potential issues with using films to educate the general public on bisexuality. One might think that using movies as a mode of spreading knowledge about taboo topics, such as bisexuality, would be clear and effective. However, as the literature points out, the apparent ease with which the medium disseminates information is itself problematic, if not outright deceptive. A potential issue with using films as education is the possibility of viewer error. That is, viewers are likely to give as much credence to fictional characters enacting cultural myths and stereotypes about bisexuality as to social actors speaking about their experience as bisexuals. There appear to be many visibility issues with bisexuality in films, as well as the way we as a culture have come to see and uh, know bisexuality when we watch movies. The manner in which bisexuality has been coded and presented to audiences relies on a restrictive range of stereotypes, tropes, and narratives. Let's take a look at the selected films. The Wachowski brothers' neo-noir film Bound depicts a ubiquitous bisexual character found in many erotic thrillers, teen dramas, science fiction, and horror films. This figure is none other than the femme fatale that Violet, played by Jennifer Tilly, is labeled. Oftentimes in cinema, this character is portrayed as bisexual, hypersexual, and duplicitous, and uses her sexuality to her advantage when necessary. In Bound, Violet uses her sexuality to seduce Corky, played by Gina Gershon, and assist her in stealing money from mobsters. Initially, the lingering question hanging over Corky's mind is whether or not Violet is truly sexually attracted to her. This then directly correlates to her inability to trust Violet. Due to her use of overt sexuality, this causes Corky to mistrust her actions and question her motives. Ultimately, Violet reveals herself to be true to Corky, and the two get away with the cash after much turmoil. However, this is a common thread between the three selected titles: mistrust and deception. The intended audience for whom the femme fatale is introduced for is also considered. Generally, the idea of typecasting a particular group of people into a single character proves to be problematic. The same goes for the femme fatale. Some critics argue that the femme fatale has been positioned as a patriarchal fantasy, and queer women's sexuality is appropriated for the male gaze. So, although the bisexuality of a femme fatale may appear enticing to heterosexual men, it also renders her unreliable and deceiving. Perhaps one of the most powerful thoughts I gathered from the research was something I like to refer to as the fence metaphor. Generally, this metaphor is used to explain the femme fatale and bisexual female characters' motives. It suggests that parallels exist between the characters' opaque motives, which will eventually be uncovered for what they really are, and the monosexist presumption that bisexual women are sitting on a fence from which they will eventually come down on one side or the other to form a fixed identity. Essentially, it assumes that bisexual individuals are in a sexuality limbo of sorts and perpetuates the binary sexuality standard of identifying as either gay or straight. In the 1990s, the queer movement radically questioned the labels through which we identified ourselves and served as an intellectual backdrop for Chasing Amy. This film continues to encourage spectators to question our culture's conventions about sexuality and self identity. Kevin Smith, the director of Chasing Amy, was quoted on his website saying, I wanted to make a film to further explore how two people's love for one another can alter their own perceptions about themselves. What and who we think we and others are changes all the time. Points of view, obsessions, insecurities, everything shapes our self image. This means that he believes that our perception of who we are, what we identify as, is subject to change as we relate to others interpersonally. Although perhaps unintentional, Smith was able to express the fluidity of sexuality and sexual identity through this film by introducing us to Alyssa Jones, the female protagonist in Chasing Amy. Through the character development of Binky, Holden's best friend slash comic book partner, spectators are offered comic relief. His characterization also perpetuates dated stereotypes and cliches that are still believed in the present society's way of thinking, even by those in the LGBT community. Most still subscribe to the belief that there is no in between. You must either be gay or straight. You must either be the friendly lesbian or the man hating dyke.
This is a four-way road, okay? And dead in the center is a crisp new $100 bill. Now, at the end of each of these streets are four people, okay? You following? Yeah. Good. Over here, we have a male affectionate, easy to get along with, non-political agenda, lesbian. Down here, we have a man-hating, angry as fuck, agenda of rage, bitter dyke. Over here, we got Santa Claus, and up here, the Easter Bunny. Which one is going to get to the $100 bill first? What is this supposed to prove? No, I'm serious. This is a serious exercise. It's like an SAT question. Which one is going to get to the $100 bill first? The male-friendly lesbian, the man-hating dyke, Santa Claus, or the Easter Bunny? The man-hating dyke. Good. Why? I don't know. Because the other three are figments of your fucking imagination!
Oftentimes in cinema, the social climate predicates the art that is created. In 2011, the idea that the law should treat all couples equally remained a controversial notion. For the first time, the majority of Americans, 53%, supported the legalization of gay marriage. Lisa Cholodenko, director of The Kids Are All Right, crafted a film placing a lesbian couple at the center of the nuclear family. By doing so, she made the idea of a gay marriage relatable by joining familiar narrative conventions, the sexless marriage and the damaging affair. However, many viewers read The Kids Are All Right as damaging to LGBT transparency and its relation to reality. Again, the stereotype that underneath it all, lesbians are actually straight arose. Members of the IMDb.com message boards argued no lesbian would cheat on her wife with a man, and viewing that plot choice as reiterating a dangerous stereotype that implies that all lesbians secretly want to sleep with men. What is particularly perplexing is the inability across genres, film, television, etc., to acknowledge bisexual as a legitimate sexual identity. For the most part, the entertainment world pushes individuals into the binary gay or straight. In The Kids Are All Right, Nick confronts Jules after learning she had an affair with Paul, their sperm donor. Due to Jules' infidelity, Nick asks her whether she is straight now. Rather than admitting that perhaps she is confused with her sexuality or may identify as bisexual, Jules denies the notion of her being straight. This is troubling on a second level, as it then perpetuates the stereotype that bisexual females are deceitful and not to be trusted.
You're sleeping with him, aren't you? What? Just be honest with me, okay? Don't make me feel crazier than I feel right now. Where's this coming from? Well, I found your hair in his drain. Because I was working and I got dirty and I took a shower. Yeah. Did you take a nap too? Are you in love with him? No. No. Are you straight now? No, it has nothing to do with that.
Throughout American cinema, it is clear that queer themes have become more prevalent as the years have progressed. However, there still seems to exist hesitancy with the full spectrum of sexuality and sexual identity. Perhaps things are not as the movies suggest. Perhaps there exists a continuum of sexuality between straight, gay, and beyond each end. Furthermore, it is unfair that female bisexual characters are continually presented as duplicitous or untrustworthy. Hopefully, with the rise of independent films and a more honest style of filmmaking, these cliches and stereotypes may be invalidated. By doing so, spectators will gain proper awareness of female bisexuality in cinema by increasing visibility and validating the bisexual experience. Thank you all for watching and for your discussions, replies, and insights throughout this course. I hope you have a great summer.